Hi, hello everybody. So today in the Ask the Expert series of sessions, we are going to see this nice utility called as Matrix Browser. So this is available in the HWX. When you click this post pull down menu, under this post menu, you will see this Matrix Browser. Okay, so what exactly is this Matrix Browser? So let's click on that. So Matrix Browser is a functionality which allows you to query uh, information either from HyperMesh or Hyperview, which is basically acting as a data source over here. And once you query any of these information, uh, you can, so for example, once I click on this data source, so there are various entities are there, so you can query them. And then either you can perform some additional operations on this, you can modify them, you can take this to Excel, okay, and do some any intended operations over there, and then you can get back those updated information back to your Matrix browser. So Matrix browser has basically is organized into two main sections. See the first half over here where my mouse is. So this basically is the top half of the browser. This provides a table very similar to an Excel spreadsheet, okay? And the bottom half of the browser shows and allows you to browse the HyperMesh or the HyperView and its data entity, okay, and data entity names and their data names. So the HyperMesh database entities will be in green, okay? So for example, if I just query and so the entities will be in green, and similarly if I try to query any entities from Hyperview, so that will be yellow in color. So when we select a column in the table, so these are blue in color, and all the following searches are conducted on the active column. Now, Matrix browser, what is a typical applications or functionalities where you can use Matrix browser? So number one, you can use Matrix browser for query and modify HyperMesh or HyperView data entities without writing cumbersome TCL codes. Okay, so whatever that you do it on the screen here. So maybe for a smaller subset of entities, you can save that as a macro, and then you can run this macro to perform the same operations on a bigger set of entities without any hand coding. So then you can use Matrix browser to export HyperMesh and HyperView data to an Excel file for further post-processing and report generation. You can establish a link between HyperMesh and HyperView in order to access the model data such as it could be material, property, beam sections, and result data in a single environment. The browser supports the selection of multiple load cases from the HyperView databases. And then you can also create some new procedures. Okay, so you can create some new procedures to enable automation with minimum TCL coding and also capture the automation process as TCL scripts or Compose or other programming languages. So now let us see a very simple application as to how to use Matrix browser. I've opened the Matrix browser here, so I want to query what are the components this particular model has. So I can just select data source as HM. So what is the entity that I want to query? Say I want to say components, so select that and I click on query here. I get this tab, so I just drag and select all the components. So 53 components are selected. I will click on this check mark, so you can see that all the 53 components are selected. So now I want to find out what is the component names. Okay, so these are the IDs of these components. So for these IDs, what is the name of this component. So you can just click here and then just type the name. It will just take you to that data names. You can click on query, and now you can see that it has fetched all the data names of these component IDs. Now what I want to do here is that you can see some of the component names have this special characters. So maybe I want to get rid of them. So if since there are like quite a few components, I don't want to go to each and every component name and remove this. So instead of this, what I can do is I can just click on this Excel button. So the same information, what you're seeing here, is kind of transferred to the Excel sheet. Okay, so it's a small activity that you can do over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this column and I'm going to take it into a text pad. Okay, and then just do some simple text pad operations, like I just go to F8. I want to replace the special character with, I don't want to replace that with anything. I'll just say replace all. Okay, so now it has replaced everything. I'll just copy, use the block selector, copy everything over here, and then I'll just put it back into my Excel sheet. Okay, so you can see that the special characters have been removed, and now I just get back to my HyperMesh and then click on matrix. So now let us resume and work on another application. So what I'm going to do now is I want to import a session file having both HyperMesh and HyperView file. So let me just open this session file here. Okay, I just going to open this session file. So this is going to load two windows, HyperMesh on the left hand side and HyperView on the right hand side. So HyperView results are also loaded. So what I want to do here is you can see that there are a lot of the rivet elements over here modeled as C bushes. So let me just go and use the mask browser and retain only my the bush elements. Get back to matrix browser. So what I want to do is so the right hand side, as I mentioned, is my hyperview. So I just go back to the results and switch off this nodes for so that I can have a better view of my model. Okay, so let me just get back to the matrix browser here. Select HyperMesh elements query. Okay, I want to select all these elements. I got 16 elements. So next select HV data. So go to results. Okay, so for these just click on query. Okay, and just select for these elements HV data results current subcase. I want to select the forces XYZ, query them. Okay, so now I get all these results populated. So what I want to do here is I want to calculate the reserve factors for these elements. Okay, and this is not something that is directly available in your simulation results. You'll have to do some additional math in order to get this value. So we have created a small function using compose. So this is the compose over here, and we created a small function. Okay, so these are the arguments that is going on to this function, which in turn calculates the RF value. Now what we need to do once we have this function created, you'll have to register this in order to so that this function is available within matrix browser. In order to do that, select the function, right click and click on register function. Okay, so you have your functions registered. So let's get back to the HyperMesh. Okay, so if you recollect my compose function, I have certain arguments. So the first three I have extracted, so which is basically fx, fy, and fz of the forces of these bushing elements. For the remaining arguments, so there could be some constants which I'm going to create as a double integer query. So I will call this as ft allowable, tensile forces allowable. So I input a value for this. Okay, and you can see it's populated. So I'll just create my next argument, which is fs underscore, which is shear allowable forces. Just input a value of 12,100 entity. Okay, and create two more as integers, value k, and one more as my curve number. Okay, so once this is done, so now it's time to call this function. Click on functions query. So since we have registered the functions, you can see the register functions is available, and also all the other default functions are also available here. Okay, so I'm going to query select this the function what I have registered, select the arguments that is required for this function. I'll put it on the right hand side, select all the columns. The only requirement is that all these arguments have to be in the same order as that is required by the function, and click on OK. And now you can see that the RF value is calculated and is populated in the matrix browser. So once you do this, so assume that you have thousands of rivets for which you need to do this. So what you can simply do is you can perform this operation only for a couple of elements and save this as a macro. Okay, come here and save this as a macro. You can just give any name. Okay, so RF calculation, and the next time you just all you have to do is get your new model. Okay, so let me cancel this. So maybe I'll just delete this matrix sheet and just go back to your model browser. So the matrix is available as a table entity here. So I can just select this and delete this. Get back to my matrix browser, and I want to run this macro. Okay, so just select RF calculation. Okay, so whatever the operations that you did is all available here. So all you want to do is just select your elements. Okay, and then just select the load cases. So there are multiple load cases. You can select all the load cases at one shot, and in which case different pages are written for each load case, and that's it. So you can see the matrix browser, it gets populated with the calculated results automatically. Okay, so the matrix browser is launched and then it is auto calculated. So without doing any hand calculations, we have calculated the RF value over here for a certain set of elements, and once it is saved, you can use this auto calculated auto-defined macro for a much bigger model too. And not only that, you can also go ahead and contour them. So you can go to the visualization. So I want to contour, and what you want to contour. So I want to contour on my elements. I want to contour the RF value, which is a Euro function, and say OK. And now you can see that you not only calculate the value, but you have also contoured the values on the screen. Okay, so that's a matrix browser in short for you. So it's a very interesting tool. and it has a direct sync between what you do here and the various entity informations in the thing. So any modification you do in the matrix browser, it's automatically reflected in the model as well. Thank you.